Welcome to Mind Controllers, a podcast about shining the light on the psychological aspects behind some of our favorite video games. I'm your host, Brandon Craw, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Joe Moreno.
And today we'll be talking about Silent Hill: The Short Message and God of War Ragnarok DLC Valhalla. So, yeah, before we really dive into it, Joe, let's chat about our time with the games. I guess with God of War Ragnarok, I'll start off with that one first because you didn't play that one. You haven't played any of the new God of War games, right? I think the first one came out in 2018. Well, not the very first one, but the new ones that were made for like the current and previous gen systems. And then Ragnarok came out, was it 2020? 2022 maybe? It was 2022. Damn, that does not feel that long. But so I played that one. I really enjoyed God of War Ragnarok. I love me a good third-person action RPG adventure game, especially one with a decent story. And yeah, that fit my alley. But for the other game we're talking about today, Silent Hill: The Short Message, we both played that one on stream in like one sitting.
Yeah, it was like 2 hours.
Yeah, and it probably would have been longer if you didn't Google like that final solution.
Yeah, what we had to do. Yeah,
especially while you're being chased. It's really hard to think straight. It was a fun time. How did you feel overall about that game, like as a game, not even in the Silent Hill franchise?
As a game, it felt more like a demo, right? For something like bigger in the works, but I don't think it was. Right? It was just like a short slice of like 2 hours of gameplay. Like, go here, right? We're learning about the history of this character that we're playing, right? There's a monster chasing you the whole time, right? Especially at the end.
Yeah.
I think it was okay for what it was. You know, it wasn't like stellar. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't as bad as people were making it out as well.
It was free also, so that helps.
Yeah,
we didn't have to pay for it. And, I think they designed it to be a short, like one-off story. It sounds like there's a lot of lore that went behind it that I am interested to hear about that you're going to tell us about.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
It's not in your top 10.
Yeah, not this year, unfortunately. I did enjoy it for being a free horror game with a different story. I feel like a lot of things could have been executed a bit better.
Oh, yeah.
Especially narratively. And I don't know. I was pretty confused. What I did really like, though, was the splicing with some of the real life like acting. It just, what is it called again?
FMVs?
FMV. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. With the FMV scenes that were in there, I don't know, like it could be a little cheesy when you see it, but it's always a little shocking and exciting to see something like that. Mostly because I like seeing the actors that like portrayed these characters that the character models are modeled after, and it was fun to see that come to life.
Yeah, it was a nice touch for sure.
Yeah. Well, I guess without further ado, we should jump right into it. So, like everything else here, we're going to be talking about God of War and Silent Hill. And both of these games have pretty deep franchises, and any game in their franchise is going to be a free game for us to discuss right now. So if you're worried about being spoiled for any of these, this is your chance to back out. I'll try to put spoiler warnings if we talk about specific games in the show notes. With God of War in particular, I'll tell you right now, it's going to be all of the God of War games because this DLC goes into Kratos' history. So spoiler warning for all God of War, spoiler warning for Silent Hill. And once again, we are not licensed therapists. So whatever we say, we have no authority to make any official diagnosis. Joe, is an associate therapist, has experience seeing patients. But for the most part, these are simply two informal discussions by grad students. Without further ado, Joe, I guess tell me about Silent Hill: The Short Message.
Yeah, you were there. We were there, Ryan. So let's talk a little bit about Silent Hill: The Short Message. A quick narrative description. So it's a psychological horror game. It was released on January 31st, 2024, so pretty recently. And what is a psychological horror game? Well, it's a game that particularly focuses on mental, emotional, and psychological states to frighten, disturb, or unsettle its audience. So in short message, we're talking about, unaliving yourself and the dangers of bullying. I believe that was another theme there, and just mental health overall. So it even went into the negative impacts of bullying, bullying because there was a focus on that. There was like a lot of FMVs in there, right? Of like, I think the character was Maya who was being tormented, and we'll get into what was going on. But yeah, this game covers a lot of heavy topics in the episode. So any listeners who may be triggered by, unaliving, right, negative mental health, bullying, might want to skip this one. So let's get into it. So Silent Hill: The Short Message is a first-person psychological horror game where we take the role of 18-year-old Anita Plannert, who is in search of her friend Maya Hindenburg. Throughout the game, which is about 2 hours or so, we are trapped in a time loop where we piece together what Maya had done. She was affected by bullying, what happened to her, what she endured. And at the end of each time loop, Anita will jump off the building. That we find ourselves in a time loop. We're waking up in like a building that's all decrepit, right? Each time we jump off the building. We're being stalked by a monster known as the Sakura Head, which is this like ominous giant figure covered in sakura blossoms, because there's like this fascination of sakura blossoms that Maya had in her art. Is the monster Maya? Maybe it's a manifestation of her. We don't know, right? Could be. But we solve puzzles throughout our time in the game, as we're getting rushed at, chased at. That's always fun, right? Trying to solve these puzzles while you're about to die. But yeah, we're getting into the plot. So I was surprised that this game had a lot of lore in it. I was like, whoa, okay. So let's get into it. So this is taking place in sorry if I butcher this, Kedenstan, Germany, which is a town whose history begins in the 1930s. Did you know that? I was like, what?
Had zero idea about any of this.
Yeah, so this town is attracting wealthy German and Japanese entrepreneurs who seek to make the town economically prosperous. There's someone called the Witch of the Far East who was once a Japanese immigrant who used her powers of clairvoyance to guide the entrepreneurs to potential investment opportunities. There was an economic boom in the town, which those people enjoyed that success. So the witch was respected, but later on they don't respect her, and then there's like some issues that are going on. So in 1947, there was a major fire disaster that spread throughout their industrial parks, losing the majority of their factories. Some of the townspeople and researchers believe that this was the work of a majority party group that was, running, and that they were in cahoots with the witch, right? The Witch of the Far East. Following the disaster, the witch would be later found dead, apparently having committed, unaliving herself by jumping off of the hospital's rooftop. And then there was an economic decline that persisted to modern day. And this game takes place like very recently, I think 2023 even, or maybe even current. But the witch is to blame for this curse. So over time, this blame would be placed on the Hindenburgs, who is closely related to the witch. In 2008, there were plans to revitalize the town with the help of Japanese corporations and Chinese investment firms. However, following 2008's global financial crisis, I was like, whoa, okay, this is like real world stuff going on here.
I had no idea that there was any of this.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what? Anyways, they were forced to reconsider due to the economic recession in the wake of the Lehman Brothers bank collapse, or like a bank that was collapsing, leaving a lot of housing complex destitute, abandoned, empty. 12 years later, there was another plan to rebuild the town, but in the wake of COVID-19, there have been considerably less interest from foreign investors. What are your thoughts on this? Like, just like real world stuff going on?
I feel like if you're going to include the real world stuff, it'd be better to, I don't know, say something about it, or like have it do something in the story where it seems like, at least in this game, like I just said, I had no idea any of this stuff was in the game. So didn't know until you educated me right now. So I don't think the game had too much to say, or didn't really need this story,
right,
or this much detail. I mean, I guess it's cool. It's not like it's really hurting the game, but just if you're gonna put it in there, I would love to see more done with it.
Maybe it was in the notes, as you're collecting notes.
Yeah, that could be on me. I was not reading the notes very well, so yeah.
Let's get back into it. So during this time period, the town was impoverished. There was a lot of decay. A lot of residents, families, both teens and adults alike, were miserable. This leads to an increased cases of child abuse. Dysfunctional families within the amount doubled than that of developed nations in Europe. Over time, the population would rapidly decline. Believing that the town is uninhabitable, the youth would leave, right, and try to live somewhere else, somewhere better. However, some of them will resort to unaliving themselves due to their hopelessness situations, with most of them found dead in an abandoned apartment complex known as the Villa. This is where the game takes place. We're in the Villa, we're traversing it, trying to figure out what happened to Maya. So following the abandonment of the Villa, which the Villa has its own lore, after its management company declared bankruptcy, the apartment complex fell into disrepair and it was uninhabited. So it became a very hot spot for graffiti artists, which explains all the graffiti, kind of like you can tell people have been in here. And the villa became a notorious spot for youths to take their own lives. So the method was to jump off the roof's building. And then I think we find a memo in the game that after the abandonment, the villa remained easily accessible. So anyone could just go in there. There was like no gate, no security, no nothing, right? It's just, you can just walk in here.
That is wild that they didn't even try to stop.
Yeah.
Do something
After
about it.
so many people have taken their own lives, it's like, okay, you guys are not doing anything about it? Okay. Maya, which is one of the characters we're going to be talking about, would become one of its latest victims, following her unaliving herself after restless hate campaigns and bullying from her peers. 2 murals were constructed at the base of the building at the rooftop where Maya's final artwork laid, and we do see these artworks. They are littered throughout the game. So 6 months later, Maya would apparently contact our protagonist Anita to come to the villa in order to show her something. Initially, Anita is worried for Maya's safety after witnessing a dangerous cherry blossom creature pursuing her, the Sakura head, but she gradually recalls her repressed memories as we continue in the game. Anita tries to escape the villa in terror, but via text, Maya stated that they both cannot leave until she found it. Throughout her ideal, Anita would come to realize her jealousy and role in Maya's death. Towards the end of her journey, Anita found that the thing Maya had wanted her to find was the sketch of Anita and her intended final work of a mural featuring both another friend, Amelie, and Anita herself, serving as a final message of validation and what she saw and what Maya saw both of them as valued friends, which prompted Anita to face her own mistakes and sense of guilt over Maya's death and her negative feelings about it. Anita confessed her actions to Amelie, which returns her back to reality. So this is at the end, she's like getting a text from Amelie, right? It's like, please don't do it, right? I'm still here. This is her facing her demons. She had a place in Maya's death.
Okay, it feels like the last bit that is what we saw, at least in the game, like that lines up. I'm still confused as to why there were so many teens who were frequenting this place to unalive themselves to begin with. Like, was that explained at all? Because I don't imagine these teens were affected by an economic downturn.
Maybe it was the witch's curse, right? One teen did it, she did it, maybe it was like, we'll keep doing it, right? There was like this is a psychological horror game, so maybe there's some psychological stuff going on in town, right?
Okay. I
mean, it was impoverished, right? It was like not doing so great, and it's whatever Silent Hill wants it to be.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what it boils down to. Whatever the game makers wanted it to be. I wonder if we could find some sort of interview with the game devs or something about this, because it feels almost needlessly heavy, filled with all these deaths and like depression. Like, it feels like it comes from a personal place, maybe.
And to condense it into 2 hours?
Yeah, right? Yeah.
It's like, for something so heavy,
it needed more time for sure. Jeez, it was kind of hard to get through because of this just constant like darkness and depressing state. And you're going to tell us more about it, but the main character just feeling so like left out and ostracized. And please tell us about our main character, Anita.
Yeah, so get ready for more trauma and not so great things. So Anita Planner, this is who we're playing. Just some background on her. Anita and her brother are raised by their single mother, Krista, which resided in Kettenstein, Germany. Initially, Anita is loving towards her mother and strives to make her happy by often doodling their family. Sometime after, Krista tries to rebuild their family by including another father figure into their life. But Anita and her brother constantly reject this guy. The constant rejection led to Anita and her brother being subjected to harsher punishments that forcefully encouraged them to appreciate this man. So mom was upset, right? And she decided to punish the kids. However, Krista's partner eventually distanced himself from the family, which further exasperated Krista's abuse towards her children. Anita is constantly belittled by her mom, often refers to her as a curse left behind by her grandma. And we hear this throughout the game, right? It's a lot of like negative self-talk and memories of mom just like bagging on her.
Yeah, especially when you're like revisiting her apartment, her like childhood apartment.
Mm-hmm. Additionally, mom, Krista, would often leave her children in increasingly pigsty environments, dirty environments, and forbade them from going outside. As time goes on, Anita and her brother would be often left in the closet for days on end until a neighbor notified Child Welfare Center of the abuse the children were facing. Following this, Krista locks both of her kids in the closet for over half a day. This culminated in the death of Anita's brother, and Krista tried to hide the body in the fridge. Eventually, Anita escapes from her home and flees to a neighbor's home where she reports her mom to the police. After her mother is charged for her crimes, Anita ends in Child Welfare Center's custody. And we do see this as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sometime afterward, Anita is enrolled in the town's local high school where she meets Maya Hindenburg and Amelie. Three girls hang out together. Anita starts to recognize Maya's natural artistic talent with her style of using cherry blossoms as a medium to convey girls' hidden sides and their struggles. Maya's talents gets quickly recognized by the internet. Anita starts to become envious and seeks validation and recognition by trying to be as online famous as Maya through her own art, but only receives online harassment. Over time, Anita quickly notices how Maya developed a close friendship with Amelie and becomes jealous of their closeness, feeling overlooked and fearing that she will be left alone. And it's a lot of like high school drama. So let's move on and talk a little bit about Maya Hindenburg, because you could say like she's another main character in this story. She's very important, very integral to it.
The whole story kind of revolves around her and the desire to find her or her work.
Yeah, it would have been interesting if we would have got like two sides of the story, right? Maybe a section for Maya.
Oh, I would have liked that a lot, actually. Mm-hmm. That could have helped.
Yeah, because it's like we're just told this information. It's like being told, right? Not shown, right?
Yeah.
So that would have been
great
cool,
storytelling,
you know.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about Maya. So she was ethically a Japanese German-born teenage student, a graffiti artist from Kazakhstan. She's the granddaughter of the Witch of the Far East.
Oh, right.
This is why she was bullied.
Poor girl.
Due to this, the Hindenburgs became a target for harassment and bullying due to their family association with the witch who supposedly cursed the town with her death. And how do you even prove that? Right? It's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like being a teenager is already hard enough, and then it's like, oh yeah, your grandma was the witch. All right, we're about to fuck with you.
I know. Did they just keep record of that? Like, you think the family would have been driven out if they killed the witch?
Why were they still there, anyways? If they were being harassed, but you know what? I don't know. It's a video game. Mm-hmm. So Maya's forced to transfer to multiple schools, but is unable to shake off the harassment. So it's like everyone knew. Right. And it's like, how did this info even get out? Like, who's telling, who's talking about Maya's grandma being the witch of the Far East? So, in addition, Maya and her mother would frequently argue due to different things they valued in life. Over time, Maya slowly became enamored with suicidal ideation. Maya took an interest in Amelie, and the three girls began to frequently spend time together. Sometime after, Maya met her boyfriend, who showed her a new world of hope in living. Isn't that lovely? I don't even know where that came from.
Yeah, wait, what do you mean? Okay, that must have been a note or something that we missed.
Yeah.
I was like, there was literally no context in those cutscenes to imply that there was some sort of romantic thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
But here I am giving you the lore, right?
Yeah.
So, however, the bullying and hate campaign caused her boyfriend to leave her, which took a toll on Maya's psyche. You like how they were in love.
What?
Here we go. She left. She's miserable.
What the hell?
I don't remember any of this in the game. I had to look this stuff up.
Yeah, I wonder where.
Yeah. So at her moment of vulnerability, Maya left a letter dedicated to Amelie in a book as a cry for help, wanting to run away with her. They were friends. However, Anita had become jealous of their closeness with Amelie and her artistic talent. So she seized the book and withheld the letter. And we do see this. Because she does reflect on like, oh, this is what I did. Yeah. Right? I didn't give this letter. I messed up. Right. So without comfort for Maya, she never heard back from Amelie because, again, she was never given the letter. She never found the letter because, our protagonist had it, kept it to herself. Months before, she took her own life, Maya learns of frequent unaliving rituals that took place in the villa where she made her graffiti works. So she would go up into the villa, do her graffiti, right, do her art. So, enamored with the girls' thoughts before they jumped to their deaths, Maya decided to put her soul and effort into one last artwork as her crowning achievement, depicting the girls, Amelie and Anita, with cherry blossom wings departing for a better place. Eventually, Maya jumped off the building and she is no longer there, and she is gone. So the act scarred her friends and the bullies, with Amelie feeling guilt-ridden in not foreseeing, like helping out Maya, and Anita for inadvertently pushing Maya towards her fate. A mural at the bottom of the villa is made in dedication to Maya, and Anita would come to repress her role and memories of that event that were associated with Maya's fate. So this is the story. I told you it would get heavy.
Yeah.
So, and let's talk about our favorite character.
Yeah.
The Sakura head.
That's
right?
a safe assumption.
Yeah. So this is the giant monster, right? The Sakura head is a humanoid creature that, just imagine, blooming cherry blossoms surrounding, its entire body, its head, trailing down to its torso. It kind of looks like it's wearing a skirt. It looks like it's wearing like a heavy jacket type clothing, which obscures the arms. It just looks like menacing. The monster's legs are human, similar to a young woman's, and also sports the cherry blossoms and wire. I'm sure it's like, a metaphor for womanhood or something growing up. It's Silent Hill.
Oh yeah, definitely
There's a
metaphor-ridden.
reason why it looks like this.
Mhm.
So the Sakura head will relentlessly chase Anita whenever it appears, and there's no way to defend yourself. So the Sakura head cannot be attacked or damaged in any way. It can only be escaped by leaving the maze sections in the game, which we struggled with on stream.
Yeah.
That was rough. I don't blame you, because the game was just like, it didn't tell us enough. Like, even solving the last puzzle, I had to look it up.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the context was.
Yeah.
Maybe we missed it. Maybe we're just looked it over or something. I don't know.
I feel like it had opportunities to insert that context like earlier in the game, so that you know what to look for when you're finally in this, like in the big final chase scene. I forgot there was a certain moment where I was like, oh, they definitely could have just thrown it in there, where you see this object with a light shining down onto it, and no, you have to pick up the object, which is like a photo, to give you like this memory, because the final section you had to find like 5 photos in order to unlock a door. And yeah, it didn't even do that. It just depended on you to learn that on the fly while you're being chased by something that will kill you, and you have like 5 seconds of time to really like get your bearings before you gotta run. That game designer me the wrong way, or maybe I just sucked at this game. I don't know.
Maybe they should have just hit us with a mission objective on the top screen or something. All right.
Yeah.
That would have been nicer.
Yes,
But
a dumb gamer brain.
the Sakura head will not stop pursuing Anita when she encounters it, save for the final appearance, where it will finally vanish upon finding the last picture of that puzzle that we were talking about, right? If the Sakura head manages to catch Anita, it's over. She gets impaled through the chest. One of the branches reaches out, kills her. That's it. And then Anita reawakens, and you got to try again. In the final section of the game, which I didn't know this, the Sakura head takes on a more like rotten and sickly appearance. The cherry blossoms are dark orange, the clothing appears dirtier, and the exposed skin of the legs become pale and decayed. I think because we were in such a panic state trying to figure out what to do, we did not notice this, but I think that's a cool detail.
Yeah.
Right? That's pretty cool.
I like that.
And so I found a little like blurb about the creature design. So Mashiro Ito, which is the designer and illustrator for Silent Hill 1 through 3, his goal was to create a design that reflected the problems and concerns for today's generations. According to Ito, he chose the motif of cherry blossoms because they can convey the sadness and cruelty of a tragedy unfolding through social media. What do you think about that?
You could find any sort of image or symbol and assign meaning to it yourself, but when I see cherry blossoms, I don't think of sadness and cruelty. But then again, I'm assuming the Masahiro Ito, I guess, was raised in a Japanese culture. I was not. Yeah. I'm raised in a Western culture, so I don't see it as that. But maybe that is how it's depicted. I'm not sure.
We're not the creators. We're not the designers. He can assign any meaning he wants, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I just find it interesting because I think of, I don't know, a lot of beauty and maybe frailty when it comes to cherry blossoms rather than sadness and cruelty.
Okay.
What about you?
I mean, I was like, are we reaching? And that's, I'm like, he's a designer. He can say whatever he wants. If he was like, this represents, whatever, society and its decline or whatever. Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. But sure. Yeah, I'll take it.
I would love to either see an interview or have a conversation with these developers. And this guy was the designer and illustrator. That's really cool too. I mean, I feel like the design of Sakura Head, which is also a play on the traditional Silent Hill antagonist Pyramid Head. That one might be more popular if you Google Pyramid Head, or maybe you already know what Pyramid Head looks like. But anyways, I really like the design of Sakura Head.
Yeah. There's like a statue too that you can buy, like a figure now. I think during that Silent Hill Transmission Direct or whatever it was, like a month ago.
Oh, I was like, like an in-game statue?
No,
what do you mean?
You
okay, like an actual
real life monies for this thing.
I see.
It's a cool design. I really liked it. It was really cool. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about what is a Silent Hill. What is a Silent Hill?
You know what? You're right. I've never once questioned what they mean by that term, and yet I have no idea.
Is it a loud mountain? Is it a quiet hill?
I know. Is it the opposite? The antagonist to the loud mountain?
So it's the other world. This is referred to as the other side, an alternate world. It has so many names. Another world, dark world, nightmare world, reverse side, whatever you want it to be, right? Throughout the series. Each game might explain it differently. It's the dark and nightmarish, mysterious realm that materializes through ancient powers, like these old gods, right? There's this other dimension. It can be viewed as a parallel plane of existence, although the other world is an abstract concept which has never been officially or completely defined. We don't have scientists looking for the other world, is what we're saying here.
Not yet.
Not yet. Maybe in Silent Hill 5.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Concrete definition of otherworld.
So I guess think of the otherworld as being viewed as a cancerous disease, slowly infecting reality until reality becomes hell on earth, or a dimension invading another dimension. However, there's no doubt that the otherworld is shaped by the minds and the psyche of those present, usually to the effect of creating their own limbo. So this is a little bit like the dark presence in Alan Wake. You know how it feeds off artists, right? And it makes this like nightmare world, right? It's like that.
Alan Wake 2, a truly good psychological horror game.
Oh, what are you talking about? Silent Hill, the short message wasn't your thing? That wasn't your thing, man. Come on.
I enjoyed it as a game, but I feel like I just got to say, like, narratively, it kind of bothers me that they have something as heavy as like taking your own life without, and they just use it as like a plot device and don't really have too much interesting thing to say about it. Yeah. And it just feels needlessly heavy. And I wish if they were going to touch a topic like that, to like handle it with more care, because it just feels like it was just tossed around, and like suicide is not something I would just throw into a game as a narrative device. It needs to be talked about more. I think they might have had some sort of like warning or like mental health warning at some point on the start of the game. So I applaud them for that.
With it, right?
Yeah. It's like they knew what they were doing, but didn't. I don't know. Somebody didn't say the right thing to the director to get him to stop.
Yeah, I feel like this experience could have been, maybe it could have been a full release, right? Make it longer. Maybe let's go into like the backstory of Maya, right? The Witch of the East, right? What that looked like, what led up to current today.
Yeah.
Because we're just throwing information like economic recession, 2008, COVID-19, right? People taking their own lives. And it's like, okay, but how did we get here? You didn't show us that.
Yeah.
So
they threw us into this like fucked up world that they created, and then they just kind of left us there to see this little glimpse of it and then see this character get thrown out the other side.
Okay, I wanted to bring in a research article that was a little bit lighter because Silent Hill: A Short Message is unnecessarily heavy. So let's talk a little about playing with fear. This is a field study in recreational horror. So fear, and this is by Anderson et al. 2020, and I have the link down in the description as well. And I'm sure it goes up right on the Spotify,
the show notes.
Notes, yeah. So yeah, if you want to check it out, it was really interesting. I really had a good time reading through it. So let's get into it. So fear is often said to be an ancient emotion that evolved to allow organisms to swiftly mobilize large amounts of resources in times of need, right? Fear is essentially going to save you when you're going to get eaten by a tiger. Right? It's there to get you out of there. So as a universal, adaptive, and normally aversive emotion, meaning that it's usually not positive, right? We don't think of it as positive. It's actually pretty relevant to the psychological well-being. So in humans, fears refers to the conscious, unpleasant feeling that one has when in the presence of a threat to the well-being, which is often but not always accompanied by behavioral and physiological defensive reactions. So when you're scared, what do? Are you hiding? Are you sweating? Do you have increased heart rate, right? This is what it's saying. We define recreational horror broadly as a mix of an emotional experience of fear and enjoyment. With this definition, we seek to capture the broad spectrum of phenomenon in which humans derive pleasure from playful engagement with fear-inducing situations. Think about it, right? Why are we playing horror games? Do we like to be scared? Do you just want to be miserable? Right? What do you think? Why do you play horror games, Brandon?
Yeah, I think because I do enjoy like that scary, eerie feeling. But it's a controlled environment, and I know it's no real threat, so it allows me to just kind of completely open myself up into the game to allow myself to get scared.
Right.
So if there's like a little jump scare or even some sort of like psychological, maybe a slow, creepy scare, like something that's just constantly building up and eventually it like will just get you. I love that. I love feeling this video game, this piece of media can make me feel this kind of otherwise negative feeling.
Definitely. And it's in doses, right? Unless you're playing horror games 24/7, then that's, I don't know, dude.
Some streamers be doing that.
Maybe we should go through our FNAF, right?
Yeah. Our FNAF phase. Yeah.
But okay. So let's see. So such engagements of fear and playful engagement, ranges from mildly scared children's activities, such as playfully being chased by a parent or caregiver, to full-blown horror media, such as horror films, haunted attractions, which remain prominent in popular culture. So, for instance, it has been suspected that the horror consumption may be an ambivalent confrontation with repressed desires. Yeah, a context for the social display of normative behavior,
Oh
a
shit.
form of self-stimulation through artificially induced arousal, or a form of benign masochism. What are you trying to figure out about yourself playing these horror games?
You
What are you
got me.
hiding?
Yeah, for real. I feel like you just threw me to the wolves right now. God damn.
I was like, when I read that, I was like, whoa, all right, we're not playing anymore, are we?
Yeah. Holy shit. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we could contain that to just one podcast if I needed to answer this question, but I don't have an answer for you right
I
now.
like how it's like, it's wild. It's like, what does this say about you? It's like, man, I just want to have fun.
Yeah, I know. I'm
Right?
like, I just want to feel want to feel a little scared. I don't know, because it's adrenaline inducing, maybe. Repressed desires, though.
Repressed
That is
desires,
a strong word.
Mm-hmm. Blame Schneider 2004 for that one.
I'm pretty sure I definitely have cited Schneider and Zuckerman also, I think, during the Dead Space pod. So that's funny. It comes
because
up
I
again.
want to be in the Ishimura getting chased by necromorphs
Bro.
every day I wake up.
Oh
like, why
my
am I not
God.
there?
VR Dead Space?
No, thank you.
AR Dead Space?
So yeah, those lines are wild. And again, if any of you want to check out that article, it is there, and it is free as well. So a recent speculation among scholars of horror is the idea that recreational fear may be thought as a form of play. The essential idea here is that recreational fear, such as horror entertainment, provides a context in which individuals can have a low-cost, risk-free experience with heart and related negative emotions. I like how we backpedal.
There we go,
right,
guys. This is I got no fucking repressed desire by playing a horror game.
Schneider 2004 has no chill.
Yeah,
no chill.
For real.
So horror film viewers, for example, respond to films with negative emotions such as fear, anxiety, dread, disgust, without being in actual danger. Like a child responding with suspenseful delight to being playfully chased by a caregiver, the horror film viewer engages playfully with the form of threat simulation. So it's like getting chased, as a kid, right? You're playing hide and seek or whatever, getting found.
Yeah.
Right? So the study and the method and the procedure. So what did they do? So there was a haunted attraction used for the study and a Danish commercial attraction. And of course, it's not in America, is it? Yeah. Where it's a dystopian haunted house. Here, visitors got paid through 42 thematically connected rooms in groups of 3 to 6 individuals. That's wild. To experience an immersive live action theatrical horror production that involves a high degree of improvisation on the part of the actors and sometimes unpredictable chaotic behavior on the part of the visitors.
Oh, I gotta stop you right there. How come I didn't know about this? Like, I would have been there in a heartbeat.
This sounds sick, right?
Yeah.
They're using all these like psychobabble smart words. It's just a haunted house with movies and scary things in it.
Live action theatrical horror production. Yeah, haunted house, bro.
Yeah, it's a haunted house.
This sounds fun, though. To get paid to do a study to go through a haunted house. 42. Oh, no. Connected rooms. I thought
rooms,
it was
like 42 different haunted houses. Dude, that'd be sick, though.
I thought they rented out a warehouse and just built like 42 different haunted houses. Okay.
Yeah. And quick side note, have you ever heard of Illbleed? It's a Dreamcast game.
No.
So what the idea is, like, you're going through haunted houses.
Really?
Yeah.
Illbleed?
Yeah. Maybe something for later.
Is that a
down
streaming
the line.
game? Maybe. Yeah.
So, yeah. So participants sign a consent form because they have to. Please sign those consent forms. They were equipped with heart rate monitors and completed a short structured questionnaire. Participants then completed the haunted house in groups like regular visitors. We have the group size and stuff here. I'm not going to get into that because I was terrible at that at grad school. So while the participants were in the haunted house, there were video recorded at 3 separate predetermined locations containing acute threatening events, jump scares. We always love those, right?
Yep.
Alan Wake seems to have Alan Wake 2 has a lot of those.
Yeah.
When participants exited the haunted house, they were asked to complete another survey and return their heart rate monitors. So they're monitoring the heart rate. They're doing surveys, right? It's not like we can get like a neural link up in your brain, right? That'd be kind of sick. But
to measure the fight or flight response.
Right.
Wait, did you take any neuroscience class or bio?
I took neurobio with, what was her name? It might have been Dr. Malucci. I don't know if you ever took that with her.
I think I saw it on the list. I didn't take that class. I was going to ask you if you remember which part of the brain is responsible for the fight or flight response, because I don't.
It's not the amygdala, is it?
It might be the amygdala. Yeah,
Okay,
damn.
so it's
Joe
the,
came in clutch.
yeah, there we go. It's the amygdala. Yeah,
Yo.
that's our fight or flight response. You know, the part in our brain that freaks out when there's a tiger in front of us, or we're watching Jason Voorhees, dismember somebody because they were being not
They
good
were
Christians.
curious?
Maybe, I don't know. You've seen those movies, right? They're always picking on the
I
teenagers.
haven't, but
Oh, okay.
I figured.
But yeah, the amygdala. Back to the article. So participants were asked to complete 2 structured questionnaires. The first questionnaire, which they completed prior to entering, and then after. It's like kind of like, what scares you, fear intensity. What are we talking about? Are you here to be scared? You want to have a good time, right? Things like that. And then some questions like, how scared do you expect to become inside the haunted attraction on a scale of 1 to 10, right? 0 being not at all scared, 9 being more scared than ever before, and another question would be, why did you visit the haunted attraction? Mostly because I wanted to, mostly because my friends and colleagues wanted to, right? So they're just asking people like, why'd you show up? You sick freak. Do you have repressed desires?
No. Damn, chill, Schneider.
So let's see. Second questionnaire administered immediately after participants exited the attraction. First, participants were asked about their general fear and enjoyment levels throughout the attraction in the entirety. These subjective measures allowed us to compare the overall subjective experience with participants' heart rate distribution across the entire session. The translated version of these questions were, how scared were you inside the haunted attraction? Again, on a scale from 0 to 9. Not at all scared, being 0, 9 being more scared than ever. And then the other question example would be, did you enjoy being inside the haunted attraction? Again, scale of 1 to 10. 0, not at all, 9, very much. So a little bit about the results. These are self-reports. So overall, 56.5% of the participants reported an internal motivation for visiting the haunted attraction. Sounds like they had repressed desires. Whereas 43.5% reported an external motivation for visiting the attraction. They were forced by someone, basically.
Oh my
right? They're like, hey, come along. Right?
Yeah, peer pressured into it.
Yeah, basically. Overall, participants reported that they expected to be scared during the attraction. That makes sense. You're going to a haunted house. You're not going there to be pleased, right? You're not going there to have a nice dinner. Right, you're there to get scared. And then finally, participants reported that the experience was a form of play, which is like a mean of 6.74, right? I mean, so yeah, people are doing this because they want to enjoy it. They're having fun, right? No one's doing this. No one's forcing this because they want to torture you. Right? So if you go to a haunted house, you're going there to have fun.
It was a mean of 6.74. So did some people feel, I don't know, like that it wasn't play? Like it was serious?
Maybe.
Like,
maybe the people that were forced, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you're going to a haunted house, even if you're being forced, you kind of know what to expect.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. I would assume any adult going to a haunted house would assume that they're in no real danger. But I don't know. This study says otherwise. Yeah, I don't know.
So what did they find? Mean and large scale heart rate fluctuations were associated with fear, whereas small scale fluctuations were related to enjoyment. So if you're scared out of your mind, you're not going to have a good time. Yeah. Interestingly enough, the fear was linear related to participants' mean and large scale heart rate fluctuations. Enjoyment showed an inverted U-shaped relationship to the small scale heart rate fluctuations. In other words, when looking at the faster small scale changes that took place during moment to moment horror encounters, we found that the physiological data suggested that there was enjoyment related to just right forms of arousal dynamics. So there's you can say there's like a level of just it being right for someone. It's just scary enough where it's like, haha, I'm having a good time, to once you pass that, you're kind of screwed and you're having a horrible time.
That kind of checks out.
Yeah. So fear, it can be a playful experience at the right level. But then again, not everyone is the same. So your level might be more way different than my level. So it's kind of like, okay.
This makes sense.
So our results their results showed an inverted U-shaped relationship between self-reported fear and enjoyment, which suggests optimal fear level of participants, where enjoyment is maximized. Again, I'm just repeating what was up there. When we asked participants to summarize their fear and enjoyment across the entire haunted attraction, however, this relationship did not seem to be present. What do we do with this then?
Why?
I don't think they get into it. And I kind of wish, I don't know if they do like a meta-analysis. I mean, here it says perhaps there's difference that there was a lack of data points. Maybe they did not have enough participants. Maybe the assessments, the questionnaires weren't detailed enough. Yeah, I mean, it could be anything.
Yeah, I don't know. I got nothing.
Yeah, so I was like, okay. So I read all this and I was like, all right. Well,
thanks for the study.
Thanks for nothing, I guess. So into the discussion. Fear as a negative emotion is associated mostly with unpleasant sensation and avoidance behavior. The paradox of recreational fear is that it falls outside the scope of traditional fear. That makes sense. Allowing fear and enjoyment to coexist. I'm pretty sure no one's going to be enjoying getting chased by a saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah.
Unless that's your repressed desire. Indeed, the participants from the current study expected to be frightened prior to entering the attraction, and all the most reported high levels of fear. After exiting the attraction, they reported high levels of enjoyment as well. Like play, which is widely regarded to be an internally motivated and enjoyable activity for the individual, the participants generally reported a high degree of enjoyment, and it was significantly related to internal motivation to attend the haunted attraction. Look, if you're going to a haunted house and you really want to go, you're going to have a good time. This is what this is saying. And then they found some gender differences in here, with women reporting higher fear and lower enjoyment compared with men. Wow, the repressed desires, huh? That just clicked. That just clicked. Wow.
Oh no.
Low reported fear among men is not surprising in the light of previous studies on horror.
Oh,
and maybe due
shit.
to social desirability or past experiences with frightening situations as part of a stereotypical forms of play and entertainment. Men have been found to engage in more dangerous forms of behavior, and thus they may have become more habituated to frightening phenomena related to women.
Holy shit, you could just do a whole study on that right there.
You really could.
Wow. Like gender stereotypes and fear, or like gender norms and fear. Whoa. That's really interesting, that last bit about fear being, the reported levels of fear being lower among men, higher among women. But then the speculation as to due to the different forms of play and maybe engaging in more dangerous behavior. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to make like some sort of anecdotal, like subjective comment about it.
But I mean, I guess playing tackle basketball in third grade, you know, I'm habituated to fear and danger now.
That was very interesting.
Yeah.
Shit. Thanks,
I
Joe.
really like this article, even though we're like, well, our results, I don't know, man.
Y'all were studying fools going through a haunted house. They have like this out of pocket like discussion summary there about the
repressed desires.
Yeah. Well, that plus the men and women differences.
Yeah, there's just like 0 to 60 in there, and I was like, all right.
Yeah,
this will be a fun article to talk about. But yeah, that's my section on Silent Hill and fear.
Well, thank you, man. You took a game that dealt with a lot of heavy topics that didn't have a lot to say, but you put a gentle spin on it with the with this fear article, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
That was interesting and fun. It felt like by the time we got to the article, it was a good time.
Yeah, I had to keep it. Yeah, we had to make it lighter in here because Silent Hill, the short message, is depressing.
Yeah.
Very depressing.
Well, once again, thank you for doing a good job with handling that game. Opposite of fear and some themes of not liking who you are, we have Kratos in God of War Ragnarok, specifically the DLC titled Valhalla, in which he kind of comes full circle and truly accepts himself and his past decisions. But before we dive into that, let me give you a little description about the game, and hold on to your seats because this is a long one. I was telling Joe I really wanted to just talk about the Kratos bits, but for anyone who's played the game, you know that there's a lot going on between Kratos and his son Atreus. God of War Ragnarok is the 2022 third-person action-adventure game that is a sequel to the hit PlayStation title God of War, which was released in 2018, and this is the 9th game overall in the God of War franchise. This game follows Kratos, a self-proclaimed God of War. The actual God of War is Ares or Mars, depending on the Roman or Greek literature, who is trying to live a more peaceful life with his teenage son, Atreus, in Midgard, and puts his bloodlusting past behind him. In the previous God of War, Kratos and Atreus kill the Norse god Baldur, resulting in the upcoming Ragnarok, which is this cataclysmic event that consists of the death of many gods and the rebirth of the world via submersion underwater. So during God of War Ragnarok, Kratos and Atreus are caught off guard as Odin, the king of Asgard, and Thor, Odin's son, arrive to convince Kratos to stop his desire to gain the attention of the Aesir gods, mostly to maintain peace. You might notice there's a theme of gods from so many different lore that are like piled into this game. So Kratos refuses and battle ensues between the gods, resulting in Odin promising to not harm Kratos if Atreus comes with Odin and follows Odin back home to Asgard. Atreus and Kratos initially refuse this offer, but later, after seeing a mural that foretells Kratos' death, Atreus eventually runs off to Asgard to take Odin's promise in hopes of preventing Kratos' death. So, while in Asgard, Atreus helps Odin find pieces of a mask that is said to grant infinite knowledge. But Odin wants to use this mask to figure out where he goes when he dies. So, after accidentally releasing Garm, which is this hellhound that can rip through time and space, Atreus then asks to be returned to his father in Midgard. Odin reluctantly does so, and Atreus returns to see his home under attack due to Garm allowing enemies into their otherwise secret hideout in this world between worlds. Atreus then convinces Kratos for Atreus to once again return to Asgard to learn more about this mask that Odin is seeking, and Kratos reluctantly agrees. Atreus returns to Odin, finds the final pieces of this mask, and then sneaks back home with the completed mask, stealing it from Odin. So after finding out that Odin was posing as one of their allies in this secret hideout, Odin kills another one of their friends, this dwarf named Brock, before fleeing back into Asgard. Kratos and Atreus then begin gathering forces to withstand Odin and invade Asgard. And after finding enough allies from all of the 9 realms, Asgard is one realm, Midgard's another, and there are 7 other ones that I have not named. The main crew invades Asgard, destroys Odin and his family, and puts an end to the evil tyrant as the rest of Asgard is destroyed due to an anger from a separate god. Kratos and Atreus discuss what happened, and Atreus confesses that he must travel alone to find the rest of the Jotnar, a race of giants that were then said to be extinct, of which I believe Atreus' mom was a giant, so he is part giant as well. So this concludes the main game story, but the interesting part of this that inspired this conversation stems from the DLC titled Valhalla. This was a free DLC that came out last year, I believe, and it was meant to just kind of give a little bit more to Kratos' story. So in God of War Valhalla, Kratos receives an invitation to Valhalla to join the council as the new Norse god of war, but initially he refuses. Kratos then proceeds with facing the trials of Valhalla, which forces him to face his anguished past that's filled with anger and hatred. He learns of his own fear and self-loathing of his previous younger self, but he acknowledges that though he was spiteful and cruel while young, he sacrificed a lot to bring back hope to humanity, which apparently is what happens at the end of God of War 3. He kills himself in order to restore hope. Kratos learns the difference between blindly serving others and being of service, and makes peace with his past and eventually agrees to join the council. So, what does that have to do with psychology? Well, throughout our life, we reflect and hopefully grow from some of these past mistakes that we make. And this is kind of what Kratos was attempting to do, and we see him do a lot of this self-reflection in the Valhalla DLC. I felt with the DLC, this was like a pretty interesting take on a complex character that we've seen for, this was the 9th game. I don't remember when the very first God of War came out, but it's been decades at this point.
Yeah, it has been.
So it's been a while since we've seen Kratos. And in these early games, Kratos is someone who is pretty much created to kill and is great at doing his job. He's like programmed to pretty much accept any sort of command, and when angered, he seeks revenge on anyone and everyone who wronged him. And this results, I forgot which game it is, but he eventually, I think, accidentally gets his wife and a separate child killed due to his negligence. Okay. So he carried that around with him for a while.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. But now in this game, he is faced with the consequences of this past's hatred and realizing how he took the lives of so many people and gods, and how he probably inflicted this anger and hatred on someone else, like a surviving member of a loved one he killed, for example. So it seems like he views his past self with a lot of regret, shame, and guilt. Also self-hatred and embarrassment. And it's a part of him that he's buried it away, does not want to let it out. But now he is forced to really analyze this and these pieces of him during the trials in Valhalla. I believe he even wants to, because he's willing to explore this so that he could be a better person going forward. And although he reluctantly dives back into the previous self in these transgressions, he ultimately makes peace with that person and knows that he had his reasons for those actions, even if he doesn't agree with them now or agree with the way those actions took place. And the fact that he feels this sort of guilt, I believe, shows how much he has grown and matured emotionally. In particular, there is the Aesir god of war. Aesir was another race. I'm pretty sure it has like a real world tie-in as well. I'm not sure where the Assyrian gods come from, or like what part of the world has them in their story. But in this game, we see Tyr, who's the Aesir god of war, kind of act as a therapist to Kratos. He helps guide him along these painful and traumatic memories and forces him to revisit them. And when Kratos was younger, he experiences these events and did not have the proper mental care to help him process what happened. So now, as he's like reflecting on these memories, Tyr is kind of there to help him better reflect, help him understand that, this younger self, he was in pain and was unable to handle that pain in an emotionally healthy way. But now he can. Now he has another chance to relive those moments and make them, a bit better, at least in his memory. So with that being said, I want to talk about some of these moments that are witnessed in the DLC. But first, want to do like an overall themes that kept on popping up. We have some negatively coded ones. There's like retribution, vengeance, regret, remorse, anguish, self-hatred, guilt, and shame. But we also have some positive ones too, mostly thanks to Kratos' now current and mature self. And those are family, acceptance, in particular with the past, and then self-reflection. So I think this game in general, maybe not so much of this DLC, but the game in whole, did something quite interesting with how the antagonists were portrayed. And there were times where the lines of who is good and bad are crossed. And you see the main character from the enemy's point of view, as well as your character like lives with them to try and humanize them a bit. And this definitely comes from Atreus' scenes where he was with Odin and then Thor and Thor's daughter Thrud, spent a lot of time with them. And I love that this game kind of did that, especially when you analyze the rest of like God of War's history, or in most video games in general, where you're just like kind of blindly killing and attacking the antagonist or whatever group the antagonist is associated with because they killed someone that you loved. I don't know. There's so many different reasons. But yeah, I appreciated this game because it's like, yeah, this dude he wasn't the main villain, but you knew of him. He was a villain in the first game. And now here you are, you sending your son to live with him. And it really like humanizes the antagonist and makes you feel a little bit guilty about what happens, and it also like makes you feel that pain of the war, especially at the end of the game when like people are dying and people that Atreus lived with that are from Asgard and Odin's family are like killed, especially those that I said spoiler warning, but I didn't talk about it in the description, but Thor, I think at the last second kind of sees his father as like the flawed man and wants to then help Kratos, only to be killed like seconds later by Odin, because Odin consents him trying to turn. And then even though, prior to this that humanizes him, it really villainized Odin in that moment to see him kill his own son. I think that's what happens. I might be remembering that wrong. I don't know.
I can't say I haven't played these games.
I know. I keep on looking at you, but like, you didn't play the game
I'll
either.
believe you, no matter what.
Yeah, now let's talk about some of these traumatic events that Kratos experienced through in the previous games that are then revisited in Valhalla. So one of the first mentioned traumatic events was burning a soldier alive in a previous God of War game.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah, that was like a normal Tuesday for Kratos back then.
It was just a Tuesday.
Yeah. I believe the context of it, he needed to make a sacrifice to the gods, and he caged up a warrior who might have been on his side. I honestly did not play the older games as well, and I was watching like a video like dissecting this DLC, so any information I am trying to vaguely remember from that video. But yeah, I believe he needed to make a sacrifice to a god, so he like either coerced or tricked fellow Spartan into this cage, and then in the video game you have to push the cage to the god. But the Spartan in the game is just like screaming and yelling and like crying for help, but Kratos is like, nah, I need you. You're gonna have to be a sacrifice, so sorry, man.
No hard feelings.
Yeah. And I think it really wasn't that big of a deal in the game, because yeah, they didn't make it a big deal back then. But then in this game they make Kratos feel empathy for him. So in this game, we see he has the severed head of this wise other god named Mimir. He can't die. So he was like chained up to a tree, and there's no hope of him leaving. So he just cut off his head in order to get him to escape. And he kind of acts as his conscience and like an advisor, a mentor to him as well throughout the adventures, but he just sits like on Kratos' hip. So in this game, we see Mimir in the cage, and you feel the agony of seeing this time someone you actually care about in that cage instead of just some random soldier. So to learn from this experience and to truly show that empathy, Kratos puts himself in the cage. And, this symbolized a lot of, like I just said, empathy, because now he puts himself in the cage and the cage lights on fire.
Yeah. Okay.
And so he experiences what that soldier felt, and he understands now just like kind of the horrors that he inflicted on these people. Obviously Kratos ends up being okay because they were just revisiting a memory in like a metaphysical sense. Yes, he was physically there, but this was all just in Kratos's head when he was being burned alive. So yeah, that was like the first step into reliving a traumatic event for him in which he caused stress and harm to someone else, and then learning from it to go forward, to becoming a better person, a better dad. So Tyr continues with helping Kratos by teaching him to learn acceptance of his actions, such as his pact with Ares to become this bloodthirsty killer that resulted in the death of many. I forget which game it might have been God of War 2 or 3, where he pretty much makes a pact with the God of War himself to give him the power to, I forgot, it might have been Zeus. I think he was trying to take down Zeus, so he was like begging Ares for that power, and he gets the power, and then I think it results in he either wasn't able to control it fully, but like so many people die because innocence as well as the gods. So Tyr tries to help him through this, tells him that he needed to do this to protect his people, and there was nothing wrong with pledging himself to Ares to receive the power. It's just what Kratos did with the power that was the mistake.
Oh, I see.
So he had an unhealthy outlet for that power, which resulted in the death of many gods and people. So it was like a god granting a power to the common man or whatever. And then I don't think Ares regretted it since he was the god of war, but then truly seeing like this evil that god unleashed upon humanity, since Kratos was then kind of not power hungry, but what is the word? Like he just felt way too powerful. So he was just taking down everyone left and right for whoever crossed him, whoever angered him or got in his way. But with Tyr's help, he was able to reframe this traumatic memory and realize that that's not who he is anymore. He isn't this power-hungry person. He isn't this angry person. So even though he might still have this power that was granted to him from Ares, he's not going to go and just kill anyone and everyone just because he either feels like it, or he's not going to go raise a whole village just because of someone in there doing him wrong. So I think because Kratos is so graciously sparing the lives of everyone, that also shows another emotional growth on Kratos' part. So Kratos acknowledges that he has killed many who deserved to die in the past, such as these Greek gods, even though their deaths resulted in catastrophe for humans. I think one example they talked about was he killed Poseidon, the god of the sea, and that resulted in like the sea levels rising up and like drowning out villages and stuff. But he didn't care about that repercussion. He just needed to see Poseidon dead. At least back then he didn't care. Now he sees the destruction he caused. So Tyr tells Kratos that he was just deeply hurt, which is why he acted out, but he handled it unskillfully. So just because you were hurt does not excuse that negative behavior. So now Kratos attempts to practice goodness by not falling into the darkness due to all these misfortunes in his life. What might have happened when he was younger. He's not wallowing in that sadness. His wife's dead. Another kid of his is dead, and he carries that with him, but not in this revengeful way anymore. Another instance in which, Tyr was helping Kratos like process through these traumatic events is the opening of Pandora's box, which once again had the power to kill a god. But this is what infected the gods and made the world a terrible place to begin with. So I believe Kratos opened up Pandora's box. He opens up that box. I forgot which god he was trying to kill at this point, but he needed to kill a god, but then that resulted in infecting all of the rest of those Olympian gods, like Zeus, and then I think Poseidon, maybe Hermes as well. Forgot which gods were on there. That infects them with the evil, and that's kind of how they end up being the villains of that game and why you need to kill those. And Tyr said that hope remained even after that box was opened. So even though Kratos had all of this newfound power and all of the gods were infected, there was still the power of hope that was transferred into Kratos. And that hope, I believe, was like a hope for humanity to survive. And so at the end of that game, that is why Kratos sacrifices his own life in order to give that hope back to humanity. Fortunately, Kratos didn't, even though he tried to kill himself, did not end up dying. I think maybe it was some other god that saved him. I'm not too sure. It didn't really go into detail as to how he ended up living through that one. But so this was Tyr just saying that even though he was younger, still filled with rage and anger, he was still showing examples of heroism by making this ultimate sacrifice, one's life, in order to benefit someone else other than himself. And this was a large group of people, not just a singular person. This was to give hope back to humanity. So the final part of God of War Valhalla consists of current-day Kratos speaking to his younger self. And he finds his younger self on the I called it the Iron Throne because maybe I had Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon on my brain, but he sees his younger self sitting on a throne. I believe that's supposed to symbolize his position on the Valhalla Council, and he sees him there. And he talks about how his younger self made all these choices that resulted in losing everything and everyone, calling the younger one cruel, arrogant, and selfish. But he still acknowledges that that younger self was still more than what other people saw, and is more than those bad choices that he made in this past. So, a couple things here. I found it interesting how he was talking to his previous self as just another person character, even though they're literally the same person.
It's like the empty chair tick.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And it was like, oh shit, they're using the
used it, yeah.
empty chair technique in this third person action adventure video game. That is dope. Yeah. So he's like talking about himself in that way, but then he eventually like kind of flips a switch and talks about how even if he had no one, I think Kratos feels like his family right now, his family being Atreus, and then there's a whole other group of characters who they have their own names. I just didn't name them in here for the sake of time. He talks about how he has all these people that make his family, and he's worried that if they were all to die, like, well, then what does he have left? Is he just going to revert back to his previous anger and hate-filled ways? And this time, I think he thinks that his younger self would, but now, as an older, mature person who has been through all of these experiences, he believes that even with nothing, he still has that humanity's hope within him, and that is going to keep him going. And he knows even with nothing, he will not return to an anger and hatred-filled person. I loved seeing that character growth, especially after playing as this, I don't know, super powerful god-killing person. Like, it's refreshing to see that sort of emotional maturity. Not too often do you find that in a game, and nor do you find that level of self-reflection.
Oh yeah, this narrative is like, wow, should I go back and just play these games? Like, this is super interesting. I'm invested.
Wild.
Yeah.
So, overall, making these new choices, these new, more healthy, more mature, emotionally mature choices aren't removing his past wrongs, but Kratos still learned from these past mistakes. And I believe that's what would make him a good ruler now. And this would be my argument for him to join the Valhalla Council.
Okay, gotcha. Cast your votes now.
Yes, exactly. So, and ultimately at the end of the DLC, he's ready for it. So he decides to do it, which also opens up like an interesting next game. Like, I'm sure they're going to make another God of War game. Don't think it's going to have Kratos in it because now Kratos' role is just to oversee this council. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do next. I felt like with a lot of self-reflection, self-acceptance, and this redemption story of Kratos, I wanted to look up some articles that kind of reflected that sense and just kind of see what the study says, especially with like, I have no idea how old Kratos is or how old even if we put a year number on it, like he could be hundreds of years old. I'm not sure. For the sake of this argument, I'm going to call him elderly in the later stages of life. So I wanted to see how that self-acceptance is important in the later stages of life. So one article detailed the importance of the redemptive self and how using it as a model can result in living a good life. So the redemptive self is broken into 5 themes. We have the sense of childhood advantage, the empathy for others' sufferings, moral steadfastness, turning of negative events into positive outcomes, and pro-social goals, the desire to intentionally enact behaviors that benefit others. Let's look at all of these and see if Kratos embodies this. Did he have advantage as a child? This one, I don't think he really did. So not sure I don't know what his upbringing was like. I believe he was just like a Spartan warrior, and I don't think they really came from like a wealthy family. I don't know. When I think of warrior, I think of someone who was like forced to join some sort of military thing.
Right.
I don't think he had advantage as a child. So how about empathy for other sufferings? Definitely did not have empathy when he was younger, since he was the one inflicting the suffering. But now as an adult, I would say he does. I would say he's learned empathy and now has learned how to like reflect on his previous experiences with empathy. So how about his moral steadfastness? Like, did his morals change throughout the years? It seems like maybe his morals have changed, and like from his younger self to his older self. But now as an older Kratos, it seems like he has a firm belief in his morals, and like those don't waver. His morals are filled with integrity. Like they're not going to change. He is who he is now. How about turning of negative events into positive outcomes, or redemption sequences, as one article detailed it? So a lot of negative events that occurred to Kratos in this game do end up having a positive outcome. Even in the DLC, the negative event of reliving his trauma to gain a seat on the Pantheon results in all this like self-reflection, and allows him to feel better about himself and feel more assured in who he is and who he has become in a position to rule. So I would say that he now knows how to turn the negative events into positive outcomes. And now how about pro-social goals, the desire to intentionally enact behaviors for the sake of others? So Kratos is the hero of the story, so naturally we're going to see his actions like hopefully result in the benefit of others. But, at least in this story, this still seems true from our point of view, as he stops Odin from inflicting suffering on other people of Asgard. Because Odin was like a tyrant. He was ruling people and inflicting suffering. Even though he did show this humanity to Atreus, I think it was only because he needed Atreus for his own benefit. I think there was, I think I forgot to mention this. I think there was something particular about Atreus that he needed his help in order to gain that piece of the mask that nobody else can help him with. So he just kind of won him over. And, Kratos, he wasn't the one seeking out the fight as well. From the beginning of the story, Odin came to him, Odin threatened him, Odin attacked him. He just wanted to live a peaceful life in the middle of these foresty woods that were in the dead of the winter. So like Kratos wanted to be left alone. So I don't see him as being the aggressor in this situation. So I think his goals were mostly pro-social, at least in this game, even though it resulted in the deaths of some Asgardians. So overall, I'd say this guy has redeemed himself, at least compared to his previous ways.
Took like 8-9 games.
Yeah,
for sure. He got there.
But he's there. So, some other articles detailed the importance of self-acceptance and well-being later in life, in particular with older adults, so 72 or older. An article defined psychological acceptance as a willingness to experience thoughts, feelings, and physiological sensations, especially those which are negatively evaluated, without having to avoid them or let them determine one's actions. So I believe a lot of these, like the thoughts, feelings, and physiological sensations, I think that mostly has to do with, like, in a self-reflective sense. So psychological acceptance in the elderly was correlated with higher quality of life, emotional well-being, and resilience. So we see Kratos at the end of Valhalla learn to accept himself and his past. This acceptance is crucial to his decision to accept his new offer of joining the council. And he now views himself not as someone who is doomed to repeat his evil past, but as someone who has learned from these events and mistakes, and at the very end has hope, if nothing else. Overall, I think Kratos, I don't know if I've seen a video game protagonist like embody this sort of self-acceptance and redemption as much as Kratos has in this game. I thought it was very interesting just to see him like go through this journey. Not to mention the game was very fun as well. Like, I love that game so much. But yeah, overall, Kratos, not as bad of a dude anymore.
Gotcha. Wow. It felt like I went on a journey of healing with Kratos. Oh, dang. Because, like, I'm aware of his nature in the first couple of games because I had friends who played through it, right?
Yeah.
But, like, seeing him, like, kind of, like, older, more mature, empathetic, understanding, I'm like, damn, okay, if he can do it, right? Like, he's a video game character, but, like, There's something
Sure.
special about that.
Right. Especially a character we've seen for a while now, and you play as them. The video game characters are like avatars of the actual players of us. So to see somebody that we care for like go through this and come out the other end a better person, it makes you feel good too, and it inspires you to at least try better, or maybe have that same level of self-reflection and analysis on your life. So it was heartwarming, it was refreshing, and I would love to see more from the studio, but some other games like kind of go in the same direction of self-reflection for your main character. So I think for today, that's probably going to wrap up our normal discussion. So we were talking about this one earlier too, of like, we've been doing Scatterbrained every week. So
Yeah.
that's kind of been a nice outlet on talking about whatever we've been playing or watching, instead of putting into this pod. But was there any other thing you wanted to throw into this one?
Real quick, what we've been playing, I mean, quick bullet point list, right? Still working on Paper Mario. I think I finished Persona 3. I think I talked about that in the last Scatterbrain episode. Back into Street Fighter again. Yeah, I mean, that's what's going on. What about you? I mean, you're doing Elden Ring, right? You're still playing through that?
Still playing through Elden Ring. Still haven't gotten to the DLC on a fresh playthrough. But I should be getting there soon. I took down Radon last night. I'm going to be honest. I used a cheat engine to... The initial thought was to bring back my save from my PlayStation version, because I'm playing it on PC now, and just kind of like recreate that character on the PC. But I messed up, gave my character one too many zeros and runes, and so we're having a good time blowing through that game right now. And I'm curious to get to the DLC though, because it kind of seems like the way it works is your attributes are hindered a bit until you find more of those shadow tree fragments. And either way, I don't think I'm going to be able to have this ease going into the DLC. And not to mention, like, even though my character might be level 350 right now, I still will get like four-shotted by any enemy. Like, that doesn't scale very well. You still need to be smart about it. So I'm just dealing a lot of damage right now, but that's okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
So don't come at me, you Elden Ring challenge purists.
Now you got to do level 1.
I know. Level 1. What was the class that you have nothing? You start with nothing but a club, like no armor.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's the class I started with. Because I started as the astrologer, and I was like, no, I want to be the degenerate guy with the thong in the club.
Jesus.
So I was like, take me back there. I want to go back to that guy. Right.
You didn't want to just take off your armor and play through?
Man. So I started a fresh playthrough as that guy. That's the playthrough I went through the whole game with. Because he's got even stats, right? And he's got a wooden club. That's such a cool weapon. It's a stick. It's Unga Bunga.
Go full on Neanderthal build. Why not? Yeah, so I've just been playing that. I don't know if I'm going to play through anything else. Then being whenever Echoes of Wisdom, Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom and Astrobot comes out, because those are the two games I'm looking forward to most right now. But that's it.
I think that does it.
That's it. Well, yeah, this was always great to talk to you, Joe, and so glad we had the chance to deep dive into these games and these characters. I know we might stream right now after we're done recording. But yeah, so I would love anyone listening be able to check us out on the stream, follow us on all the socials, Instagram. Shit, what else do I post on? I don't know. It's mostly Instagram and YouTube now because the TikTok got banned. Not sure what happened there. Apparently, TikTok doesn't have any human customer service. So if anyone's had any luck getting a banned TikTok unbanned, let me know. All right, everybody. Well, take care of yourselves. Thanks for listening. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. See you at the next one, baby. Bye.